Hi everyone, thank you for coming back to my channel. Today I have a lovely tutorial for a slit sleeve flare top. If you're interested, join me. I have the amazing lightweight fabric, a meter, great for the season because it's light, flowy and airy. So I have a meter of it, a paper and a pen for my measurement, a tape measure, a pair of scissors, a rule and a chalk. You'll be needing your vertical measurement, horizontal measurement, and all horizontal measurement is calculated as follows. That's your horizontal measurement plus 2 inches divided by 4 except your round shoulder, which I would explain further in the tutorial. For the nature of the main fabric, I've got a sample fabric to explain to the illustrations of how it's folded. So you fold the fabric in half along the width and lay it flat. This fold is one side of the side seam of your top. Bring the open side on your left hand side of the fabric over the edge to line up with the folded edge. This resulting bias fold would be your center front. Now repeating the same steps on my tricky working fabric, I have aligned all the edges, making sure that everything is neatly and smoothly aligned with no wrinkles. What I'm going to do to make it easier for myself to work on is to pin all around the fabric. Now to calculate the shoulder line, as I explained before, you will be needing your round shoulder, possibly close to the ball point between your shoulder and your arm. That is -2 divided by 4, and place the measurement. I measured mine to be 8 inches. Marking a straight line with your rule. And then cutting to result in your shoulder line. So like I explained earlier, the side seam with the folded fabric, you cut through the folded fabric at the side seam to reveal the two sides of your top. So you have the side seams where your sleeve will be located. So here I'm measuring 18 inches of my full sleeve length. You can have a short, medium or long, or the same length as your top. So I'm measuring 18 inches for my sleeve length and 24 inches for the length of my top, because I wanted to hit right around my hip area. So marking 24 inches along all the way into 3/4 or halfway through the top, I will join the measurement markings of my sleeve to the hem length, creating kind of a slopey end of my top. So you could have it a straight line going towards the length of your hem to create the handkerchief look, or you can have a slopey bit. So what I'm doing now is trying to define the length of the top, which curves right around the side seam of my side of the top and then going up my sleeve. So here I'm cutting through the marked lines to cut off any excess fabric and then pinning it down. Like I said again, this fabric moves around a lot, so in order to be able to work with it very easily, I'm pinning all around the edges, making sure that the edges are neatly aligned. Moving straight to the main fabric. So now assembling the main fabric, we'll be needing our vertical measurements. So you would be needing your bust measurement, that's your shoulder to your bust, your shoulder to your underbust, your shoulder to your waist, and your shoulder to your hip. As you have achieved the shoulder line, we'll be measuring from the shoulder line the bust. So here I'm measuring 10 inches. That's my bust line. So from the shoulder to where I'm marking is my bust line, which is 10 inches. With a straight rule, I'm going to join the marked lines to result in a visible line. This is going to aid me to put down my horizontal measurements when we come up to that. So I'm going to repeat the same for the shoulder to my underbust, the shoulder to my waist, and the shoulder to my hip, creating vertical lines and then creating horizontal lines for me to measure my horizontal measurements. With the vertical lines for the bust, underbust, waist and hip measurements all achieved, I'm now going to mark the calculated measurements of my horizontal measurement, starting with my bust that's divided, that was +2 divided by 4, and mark the results on each of the vertical horizontal lines, if I should say. So here I'm measuring my waist, not that it's needed, but we'll explain it as we go into the tutorial. So measuring my waist, and then my hip measurements. The measurement for my hip slightly goes over. You can see that there's not enough fabric, but with an imagination, obviously, we can be able to trace where the waist measurement would be. Once the points are achieved, I'm going to join the bust point to the hip point. So I'm not using the waist point because it's a loose top. So I'm going to leave kind of an inch away from the point, not too straight and not too shapy. So coming down an inch away, or you can make it 1.5 inches, or you can just draw a line straight from your bust point to your hip point. So that's my bust line, that's my underbust, that's my waist point, and then my hip point. So with my bust point, I'm coming down 1 inch just to allow a little ease, a free movement of my arm. Now we're going to proceed in creating the belt holes. In order to create the belt holes, this is where the point for the waist come in handy. So transferring the point of the waist to the new waist point, I'm coming down by 1/2 inch and going up by 1/2 inch, creating 1 inch hole for the belt's hole. What I'm going to do is to pin down an inch down below the bust point and pinning through the marked lines all the way to the hip. So in order to define the belt holes, I'm going to sew from the bust point, that's an inch below the bust point, to the first point of my belt hole, stopping there, and then the second point just below the waist point down to the hip point. Once that is achieved, what I'm going to do now, with the pins still in place, with a chalk or a marker, I'm going to transfer the points on the top to the other half of my flare top. That's a part to transfer the chalk particles onto the other side of the top. So here, with the pins on the top, I'm going to transfer where my waist point is. That's half an inch below my waist point. My hip point, half an inch above my waist point, through to my bust point, which is also an inch below my actual bust line. With the markings now drawn in, I'm going to use my marker to join up all the marks to create the same lines on the other side. Obviously, it's on the other side of my fabric. So I'm tracing from the bust point to an inch above my waist, and then half an inch below my waist point to the hip. Just pinning the points down to hold the fabric in place. I'm also going to pin all around, making sure all the edges of the front fabric and the back fabric are equal, aligned at the edges. Once that is achieved, I'm going to draw out clearly where the belt holes would be. Now from my shoulder to my waist is 16 inches. So to establish that I've got the right inch up my waist point and half an inch below my waist point, just measuring 15.5 inches above and 16.5 inches, leaving an inch in between. So I'm going to sew from the bust area 1/2 inch above my waist point and 1/2 inch below my waist point to the hip. I'm going to take it under the sewing machine and zigzag nicely all around the edge. I'm going to use a very small seam so as to just finish off the edges at the same time. And here we have it, all nicely zigzagged around the edges, around the shoulder line, around the sleeves, and I've also sewn down the marked lines from the bust to the hip. And remember, the inch that I left, I created a buttonhole there for the belt holes. So once that is done, here we focus on the shoulders. So on one end of the shoulder, you overlap the hem of the back over the hem of the front of the top and pin it down. Doing the same thing on the other side and taking it to the sewing machine to sew on that side. Here is the slit open sleeves. So once that is done, it will stop the slit from opening up into the shoulders. So after sewing that, here we have it. Lovely slit flare top. You can have it with a belt, which is a strip of your fabric sewn and tanned inside out, or you can choose to wear it by itself. Thank you so much for watching. Till my next video, take care and stay safe.